let's cross to a man who knows everything. I'm fascinated by this. Rear Admiral Dr. Chris Parry, CBE. My God. You got a CBE, Parry? What was that for?
Can't tell you. Sorry about that.
All right. It's classified information, actually. Listen, I'm delighted to have you on, my friend. There's so many things I want to ask you. Overnight, two things. An RAF military base at Akrotiri in Cyprus attacked. We had Isabel Oakeshott on this morning talking more about the retaliatory blasts across Dubai, Doha and Kuwait. The government scrambling to get 94,000 Brits back from the Middle East. A government that says the terror level might raise. A defence secretary who says there have been 20 terror plots that these awful people have tried against this country. And yet a Prime Minister, Chris Parry, who is sat firmly on the fence going, international law means I mustn't make any decision. Your thoughts as a former military person?
Well, let's start with the legal aspects, Jeremy. All the people I respect on international law, my friend Jeff Blackett, who's an ex-judge advocate of the armed forces, Lord Wolfson, have explained quite clearly how it is not against international law to attack a terrorist regime in Iran. And I'm afraid to say that our international lawyer politicians at the moment are failing to protect us with the same international law they're claiming keeps them away from doing things. I think the Prime Minister had the touching faith that somehow international law was going to stop our base at Akrotiri being attacked by the Iranians, as if the Iranians would be restrained at all by what they're doing. I'm afraid there's been a fundamental misjudgment in the analysis of what would happen in relation to the attacks by Israel and the United States against Iran. And somebody should have gamed it, to tell you the truth, to see what our political objectives were in this conflict and where our interests lay. It seems that all we want to be is the timid bystander in all of this, and in the hope that if we don't actually say anything, nobody will come near us.
But the problem is, if you do that and you don't make a decision and you're not proactive, you quite rightly face the accusation that you're trying to please all the people all the time, which I think is a mirror a mirror image of everything about this government, that they don't do anything from their heart. They didn't have a plan. They don't, think, I'm going to do this even if I get criticism because this is what I believe in. They wait and wait and wait and wait. And the fact of the matter is, internationally we look weak. The Iranians have bombed a British military base. Nothing's happened. We haven't thrown out diplomats. We haven't prescribed the IRG, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, as a terrorist organisation. It's just the same usual docile BS, isn't it? I don't mean to swear, but it just drives me insane. I wouldn't care, Chris, if he came out and said, I'm never going to support the Americans. But he doesn't. He sits on the fence, and it's so frustrating.
I genuinely think that this government does not have the intellectual or strategic literacy to be able to cope in a complex world at the moment. We're not respected on the world stage because, as you say, nobody knows what we stand for. But I think at heart, whatever they're dealing with, whether it's the small boats in the channel, whether it's international affairs, there's no strategy. Everything's tactical. And the way I describe it, I used to describe it when I was teaching military theory, is if you spend all your time in the trench, you think what you're facing is opposite you. And if you went on the balcony, you'd see you're in the wrong trench. And I'm afraid to say what this government doesn't do at all, I repeat, is strategy. All it does is live from one day to the next, hoping it's going to survive. That is not a strategy for a great country. It's not a strategy for a country that wants to be respected in the world.
Strange enough, I was thinking about you yesterday. Please don't take this the wrong way, because I thought we need to get him on because he'll explain this to me. We are looking at crude oil has gone up by 10% already. That's going to impact on the British motorist. Apparently, I think the fuel duty was going to be raised tomorrow by the Chancellor. It'll probably U-turn number 4036. Tell me about the Straits of Hormuz, because I've been reading about the fact that 150 boats are stockpiled and can't go through one of the biggest shipping routes in the land. There's global turmoil, which is going to impact because Iran controls that. You were a naval man. Explain the reality of that situation, if you could, Chris.
Yeah, so you've got a very narrow strait, as you can see. You've got part of Oman sticking up on that peninsula. You've got Iran to the north, and all the oil that comes from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, Kuwait, all these other places, Bahrain, comes through the strait. There's quite a proportion goes from Iran by pipeline to China. And what makes it critical is some of the major economies like China and Japan rely on that oil and to an extent gas as well coming through the straits. And any constraint of the straits there means you get a constraint in the oil. What's really interesting at the moment is that President Trump has targeted Iran's navy. They say they've already sunk 9 vessels. The Iranians have got a load of missiles and also submersible and semi-submersible missile platforms, which will need to be taken out. I suspect one of the things that the Americans will concentrate on is ensuring that the straits can be reopened and that China in particular can be reassured whatever happens in Iran, whatever regime takes over, that flow of oil will continue. Because one thing that will get China involved in this dispute, if they see basically one of the motors of their economy, their oil supply from the Gulf, being disrupted. So any country that can say to China, just stay on the sidelines, we'll keep the oil flowing, is going to do well in this.
Just from a military, brilliant, mate, seriously, just from a military point of view, Donald Trump said earlier 4 weeks. How quick can this be done in your mind? You're the expert.
So it depends what's going on in the country. I think the American strategy is to decapitate the leadership, to destroy the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, to try and get the armed forces to basically revolt against the regime and indeed the IRGC. We mustn't forget that the IRGC is the equivalent of the SS in Nazi Germany. If you like, what we need is for the Wehrmacht to turn on the SS. And once that happens, you're going to see an implosion of power in Iran. My worry, Jeremy, is if you look at the 1979 revolution, it was very bloody indeed. There was a lot of score settling. There was a lot of sort of people getting killed. And the last thing that we need is for Iran to descend into anarchy. And I'm not sure who the alternative ruling people are, to tell you the truth. I can't see anybody.
I saw at the weekend the old Shah of Iran's son, the prince, is abroad. I think somebody said to me, I don't know where he is, but anyway, they believe that could be the answer. But you're right, and I said at the beginning, didn't I? It's what happens afterwards. The Americans, I'm not having a go at them. Well, I am to a degree. Afghanistan, that was ridiculous. Vietnam took ages. If you're going to make the change for the good of the world, without being accused of being dictatorial, you have to be around to make sure there's an answer. Chris, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. We'll be using you a lot. I hope you don't mind that. No sleep for you in the next few days. Good man. Dr. Chris Parry, former Royal Navy Commander.